Welcome back to another episode of the View from the Rock podcast. This is your host, Ruck Daddy. Today with us on the pod, we've got Papa Swappa, we have Morgie, and our first guest appearance with Signdog. On the show today, we're going to get into a little state recap for hoops. We got an introduction of Signdog, aka Brad Moore. Get to know him a little bit more. We got a spring sports preview. We're going to talk about some 80s hair bands and, of course, beer of the week. And last but not least, we have our top 3 concerts of all time. Papa Swappa, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing great. Had a great weekend. Today was beautiful outside up here in the northwest corner of the contiguous United States. How was it for you, Mr. Morgenthaler?
Woke up this morning and saw blue skies. Every day is a great day up in the Cortez.
We have not seen a lot of blue skies this week. As we'll talk about later, spring sports are starting, and yesterday we had probably the coldest baseball scrimmage I've ever had. It was 37 degrees. It would have been better if it was snowing. It was 37, it was rainy, it was windy. There may even have been thunder.
I was on my way down to the lacrosse game and thought of you while you're out there.
Thank you for thinking of me.
It seemed awful. It looked awful.
It was awful, but we got some stuff done. Fortunately, we have turf.
Yes, and speaking of that, going down to the lacrosse game, the 7-8 team was playing Glacier Peak and beat them in the Jamboree last weekend, and we came up short, 9-7. But talking to a couple of the kids today, Rowan's upset a little bit, but Emmett Johnston, he said it's going to be revenge all year when we see them in the final.
And so this was Glacier Peak.
Glacier Peak in Snohomish, middle school in Snohomish.
Yeah.
And the greatest middle school I've ever seen. They have turf. They have a track. It's a full-on football field at the middle school.
Wow. Glacier Peak is like a 4A school, though, right?
3A, 4A, yes.
4A.
And they only have one middle school that feeds into them?
No, we were in Snohomish, so I don't know. There's 2 or 3 in that area. I don't know Glacier Peak boundaries, but we were playing in Snohomish.
You know, I think it's a good time to recognize the wonderful facilities that we have, despite being the probably tiniest 2A, I believe. People don't have the number of baseball fields that we have.
I want to go on the record as saying I think we have the best high school baseball field in the state of Washington.
Complex?
And field. Tremendous facilities.
Indoor batting cage?
Indoor locker room. There aren't many outdoor locker rooms kicking around out there, but we do have one indoors.
And we have 2 fields too. We have a grass field.
We do. And then right adjacent to the baseball field is a beautiful softball field as well.
Are we hosting districts this year?
Every year, and I think it's one of the best bargains I think out there for high school sports fans is to see at the end of April, beginning of May, the 2A district baseball tournament right here in Anacortes, Washington.
It's going to be amazing. And that's in May?
It's in May. There is one spot where you can watch for free. Are you familiar with that spot, Mr. Morgenthaler?
So that's called Morgie Hill, and that's if we play on the grass field only.
Yes.
So it's basically a 2-minute walk from my house, and there's a nice little bench set up.
A grassy berm.
I was hoping we'd get the word berm in there. That's
we did.
Nice.
And it's literally right behind center field, and you get to see every pitch. I could call balls and strikes from there.
If the sun is shining just right, the hitters are blinded with the glare off your bald head.
I do that on purpose, and I wear a hat when we are up to bat, even though I hate hats. And that's a different...
I don't know if I've ever seen you in a hat.
I wore hats in college.
I've seen you in a beanie.
I love a good beanie, but I do not like a hat.
So when you were wearing hats in college, was that because you were trying to hide the, inevitable that you were fighting?
No, I was not at that stage yet. It was just...
So you could have been rocking a full head of hair, knowing that one day you'd go bald, and you were hiding that under a bushel.
Correct.
Mr. Morgenthaler, last week when we talked, you were nursing a back injury that I think we were trying to decide whether that had happened from sleeping wrong or possibly a sneeze.
Both. I mean, I sneezed and I slept wrong. It's getting better, but it's still just lingering a little. So I don't know how to put it, but I'm not 100%. I would say I'm 88%.
You need to find yourself someone to give you a massage. I'm not gonna give you anyone that should recommend that to you.
Working on it. So, hey, real quick, before we do our state recap for hoops, which is going to be focused mainly on the 1A, 2A, I spent the day Friday night at the 3A, 4A championships, and it was amazing.
Where was that at?
Tacoma Dome?
So I haven't been at the Tacoma Dome. I think the last time I was there, and I don't want to sidetrack things here, but I think the last time I was at the Tacoma Dome was to see Guns N' Roses with Skid Row.
What year would that be?
Maybe 91, 92. I don't think I've been to the Tacoma Dome since then.
You were supposed to be at the Tacoma Dome in 1990, but our high school team failed to make it.
We had a lot of things not go our way. What condition is the Tacoma Dome in?
I think it's awful. It looks just like it was in 1992. When 1993, we went down there and played. I walked in there. I went down with Ryan Keyes, met up with Troy Holmes, Chris Taz, and then the legendary Mount Vernon coach, Mac Frazier.
Those are some Mount Vernon legends. Ryan Keyes could hit a baseball, and I really respect guys that can hit a baseball. Good hitter.
And he also has the 3A record still for tournament career threes with 36. So we looked in the program, and next week I want to have him sign it for me. And also, I forget, his son Royce came with us.
Any idea how many state championships Ryan has as a Mount Vernon Bulldog?
I think he has two basketball. So they went 2-1-1-5 in 4 years and went 109 for their record.
That's a good run.
And I think they have the 1990 state title game for baseball.
Yep. We were third that year. They beat Sela.
I don't know if they have any more after that.
They won in 92.
So they have 4. So anyway, it was a great day. Good, very good basketball. There's a kid from Curtis. They ended up winning the 4A title 2 years in a row. His name is Zoom Diallo.
Zoom?
Correct.
Like the Zoom, like you meet people online?
Correct. And he was amazing. It was good to see like a 5-star prospect.
You know, I think the best name I heard in any state tournament was a member of the Davenport Gorillas by the name of Tennessee Rainwater.
And he's their best player, correct?
Yeah, apparently he's phenomenal. I watched a little bit of the 2B tournament. One of my old friends from college, Todd Shoemaker, is the coach of the Columbia Burbank Coyotes. Are they Coyotes or Coyotes?
I think they can be both. Is that plural?
I don't know.
You guys are the English teachers.
I would imagine, off the top of my head, that a coyote is singular. Coyotes
Is more than one.
seems like that.
So if you're a team, you're probably Coyotes.
Correct.
But if you are
A lone wolf or
playing
a pack of one.
singles in badminton, you're probably a coyote.
Yeah. I don't know if you've encountered that situation, but
That's funny.
Makes one wonder.
Yeah. Real quick, I got to give a shout out to Tahoma girls. They're 4A, and a good buddy from college, Steve Meyer, his daughter Grayson Meyer is on the team. They lost to a good Camas team in the semis and then ended up beating Kamiakin for the third place trophy.
So this time last week, we were talking about the 2A state tournament preview. 1As and 2As go to the Sun Dome in Yakima, and we were pretty confident that Anacortes had was going to bounce back from their loss to Prosser with the win over Enumclaw and then follow that up with a win over Pullman. How did that work out for us?
Not well. I'm still upset. I don't have much to say. I don't really want to talk about that. I think it was a bad loss.
It was a bad loss.
It was.
And I think the only thing that helped with my grieving was the next game Seaholm lost.
Oh.
Why would Seaholm losing help you feel better?
Because they left and all the parents went home in their Beamers and had nice sweaters on because it was cold out, and then they drove home and
probably sleeveless sweaters.
Wow.
Wrapped around their necks.
So Seaholm lost.
Okay, so you said a sleeveless sweater. Is that a sweater vest at that point?
Probably one and the same.
Maybe the sleeveless sweater originally started its life as a sweater, but then at some point made its way into the confines of Cedar Woolley, at what point it immediately lost its sleeves because that would not be hardcore enough to live in Cedar Woolley.
Have you ever worn a sleeveless sweater?
I've worn a sweater vest.
So then they're not flattering.
Nothing about Seaholm is flattering.
Are you saying they are the sweater vest of the Northwest Conference?
So speaking of the Northwest Conference, we went into this thinking that the Northwest Conference was the best conference, and it is. It's the best conference in the state. We took a hit last weekend in regionals, and then we took a hit this week at state with Seaholm and Anacortes getting bounced on Wednesday. But by the end of the day, how did the Northwest Conference fare across the board, Mr. Morgenthaler?
Well, we had Linden and Blaine did very well on the boys' end. Linden ended up winning the title. We'll go through that in just a sec. But the girls, Nooksack Valley, Linden Christian,
1-2.
Burlington.
Second place for the second year in a row.
And we have a shout out to Nate Sullivan, Sully, who lost a tough one in the semis, but ended up bouncing back and taking third in the 1A.
Highest finish for Blaine since 2000 when they had a point guard by the name of
Luke Ridnour. Great coach, Rob, his dad. And he ended up going to the Oregon Ducks, which I disliked. But he ended up having a great career, like 15, 16 years in the NBA. And I think I can call him a friend. He's in my phone.
Wait, Luke Ridnour is in your phone?
Yeah, so he plays for we have a kid in Anacortes. His name's Cason Cummins, and he plays for Luke's team in 7th grade.
We should maybe at some point have top 3 famous people in our phone.
I don't know that I have much to contribute, but
we
can do that.
I think possibly we could maybe, if we can figure out how to get someone on the phone and record it, have Luke be a guest.
I feel like that was a shot towards your producer right there.
No, not at all. So anyway, Mr. Swap, what did you think about yesterday's, just the games in general for Saturday for the 1A, 2A?
The girls' championship, Nooksack Linden Christian, was a great game. And Nooksack girls are really good. Linden Christian beat Kings. I think it's the 3rd year in a row they played for the title. Linden football and basketball they've won back-to-back championships the last 2 years. And I've got nothing but respect for Linden. They, there's maybe a little jealousy, if I was to be honest. They win, but nothing but respect for Linden.
I agree. I like that analogy. I'm a little jealous, but I respect them. Like, they just do it the right way, and they're always going to be there.
Seaholm I don't like.
And I love it. But you look at that game and Linden, and they're always there.
They're always there, and they were I think this year the 3rd or 4th best team in our conference. And then I said to a couple of people before the tournament, I thought they're going to end up winning this thing, and they did. The bracket worked out well for them, but You just got to respect them.
I got a text this morning from our buddy Neil Clokey, and he's like, "Are you gonna just complain that Linden got the best draw?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am. One time, they had the best draw. They played Renton. Anybody, Seaholm, us, and them beat Renton.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
But overall, it was a great tournament to watch in general. Just the entire 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A. It was fun.
And don't forget the 2Bs and 1Bs. I stayed up Wednesday night and watched Orcas Island play.
And they went on a little magical tour.
I think they placed.
What happened with Mount Vernon Christian?
I believe the girls got 3.
Okay.
And the boys didn't place.
Spokane Arena is electric.
Never been to that because I'm always coaching baseball during that tournament, but I'd love to go to that at some point.
But it was really fun to just go back down to the Dome. The first time I went was 85, 86. I don't know, Ruck, when Quinn Snyder graduated from Mercer Island.
Remember they had Quinn Snyder and Brian Schwabe, who I believe ended up playing at Northwestern. You might want to fact check that, Mr. Ruck. But Quinn Snyder, tremendous.
And then was going to Duke.
Yes. Point guard for Duke and Coach K. And now he's
And Coach K was like early on.
early Coach K.
And Ed Pepple. I hate Mercer Island too. They're like the south of Seaholm.
Mercer Island has a lot of Seaholm-like qualities.
They do.
They really do.
Entitled. A little wealthy. You think Mercer Island is that wealthy?
Well,
That's a joke.
very Seaholm-like.
Well, I have to reveal that I had no idea Quinn Snyder came from the great state of Washington. It says played college, 85 to 89. So I'm assuming that means he probably graduated in 85.
Yeah.
I like that you asked me that because I wouldn't have been alive at the time. So that was just from Wikipedia.
That's
Was he just named the coach of the Atlanta Hawks?
yes. He replaced
Mr. Sonic.
Nate McMillan.
Dang it.
Wow.
That's a different thing. We can talk about the Sonics.
Not on this podcast episode. Are we looking to take a break here before we move on to number 2 with our guest introduction?
I think we should take a little break here and come back and introduce our special guest.
I can't wait.
Sounds amazing.
We'll see you then. All right. Welcome back from the break here at the View from the Rock podcast. We are excited to have our first guest of the show's history with us today. This guest hails from Ellensburg, Washington. He is famous for riding BMX bikes, and he also makes some really cool. He's giving me some funny looks here. He makes some really cool designs, and you've seen them all around town. Pat Swap, what more do you have to say about our guest today, Signdog Brad Moore?
Well, it is our first friend of the podcast to be on the podcast. This is a kind of a watershed moment here in the history of the View from the Rock podcast. But when we started this podcast, we billed ourselves as 3 guys that like beers, bands, and balls. And I think there is probably nobody that we know that loves beers, bands, and balls more than Mr. Brad Moore, a.k.a. Signdog.
I think that when we talk about bands, he's like one of the greatest people that I've ever met in terms of how many shows he's seen.
If you're ever someplace that is doing a trivia night and you are lucky enough to have him on your team during the music round,
You're going to win. I wasn't lucky enough that night to be there.
ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Brad Moore.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I feel like you guys have set the bar pretty high, and all I can do is disappoint it from here on out. But I'm honored to be here. This is a lot of fun. It's already a lot of fun, so here we go.
So next we're going to talk about spring sports.
Just a preview of baseball, since Papa Swappa here, Mr. Swap, is the baseball coach. And then track and field, just a little brief recap, and that is Ruck Daddy is also a coach.
So we, as we said in the last segment, Beautiful facilities here. We had a little scrimmage yesterday, 37 degrees, sideways rain. There was snow. There were ice pellets. There might even have been a little thunder. But we're looking forward to a great year. So for anybody out there following Anacortes Seahawk baseball, we're going to open up the year next weekend with a little jamboree at West Valley of Yakima, followed by a doubleheader on Saturday with the Ellensburg Bulldogs. So we're starting the year off with some high-level competition, try to prepare us for a tough season in the, as always, difficult Northwest Conference.
Didn't they come over last year?
They did come over last year, and we beat them with a walk-off base hit. It was one of the exciting moments of the year for us, starting off our state tournament campaign with that big win last year, and we're going to return the favor this year by going over there for a doubleheader. Going to be cold, as always, windy in Ellensburg, but we're ready to compete.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you were to say who's going to be the first pitcher that's going to start that Ellensburg game.
Well, first pitcher is probably going to be young Staley Moore, who happens to be a close relative to our guest today here on the View from the Rock podcast.
What do you think about that, Brad?
I'm pretty excited. I was not a baseball guy, and then third grade, Staley Moore decided he wanted to be a pitcher, and so I quickly became a baseball guy and have been falling in love more and more every year with baseball. And last year was about as much fun as I've had watching and participating with the music. It was about as much fun as I could have as a parent. So I'm really excited about it. Obviously, going to Ellensburg is a big thing. I know the coaches, and we get to see some old friends, and Staley gets to play against some kids he grew up with a little bit, and he played 1 year in Ellensburg before we moved over here. So we've been here 8-9 years now. So as I have lots of love for Ellensburg, but we're going to go over there with one goal.
That's dominate. That's what we do.
That's what we always do.
We wake up and piss excellence here in Anacortes.
I do have to give a little shout out to the Ellensburg girls, 2A champs, 51 in a row. It's hard not to give them a little love because that's pretty amazing.
It would be.
Didn't they like double up every team they played in state this year? They were dominant.
They were dominant.
They came over and played volleyball this fall against our girls. Mrs. Swab happens to be the volleyball coach. So they rolled in with 6'6" and 6'4".
Are those the same girls on the basketball team?
They are.
And you don't see a lot of 6'6", 6'4" in 2A female athletics.
And they move well.
Oh yeah, and where are they going? By the way, do you happen to know?
I know the 6'6" girl Olivia is going to UW to play basketball.
Yeah.
I think. Is it basketball or is it volleyball?
I think it's basketball,
I think
but
it is too.
I think though, if you look at that team, I almost wanted to see like, hey, how do you fare with? They're the best 2A team, one of the best 2A teams ever. So you look at that and say, okay, how do they fare with like one of the best 3A teams or 4A teams? Like I was telling Brad earlier last week, like the team from Spokane 6 years ago, they had the Hull sisters, Hull, 6'2" twins. They went like 105-3 and won 3 state titles, and both went to Stanford. And then they won a national title. It'd be interesting to have like a tournament of all the winners.
Yeah.
The following week play.
well, I think you look at like Indiana, didn't they historically have all classifications or all schools playing the same state tournament?
Just like Hoosiers.
Yes, and that was kind of the impetus for the movie Hoosiers. Was there was some legendary team in 1954? I might have just made that number up, but could be accurate. Mr. Ruckdashel.
Do you want me to fact check you on that one?
Well, maybe later.
1954? You just made that up.
I might have, but it's something.
I think it was 1957.
Don't get caught watching the paint dry, Ruck. You got
So what about track, Ruck?
Something that's not well known is that track is actually the highest amount of participation in the United States as far as like youth athletics and all that kind of stuff goes. So, that goes to the idea that right now we have like 105 kids, I think, out on the team. 113 signed up. Not everyone actually makes it out.
Now, is that for track and field or just track?
Track and field.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Because it's an important thing to make note of, since I don't actually coach the tracked sport. I coach the field. I coach the throwers.
How many fielders do you have out
Well,
there?
yeah. Field is often maligned as not athletes, but I'd say they're some of the greatest athletes that we have on the team. Right now, we've got between 10 and 15 throwers, but field actually includes the jumps, pole vault, anything that's not being run on a track.
Does that include the javelin?
Yep. Javelin.
Discus.
Javelin is contested in the state of Washington. Not all states contest it. It's a dangerous one. We have the rubber safety tips on it, though, so a little safer that way. But, you go in the metro areas, I don't think a lot of Seattle schools actually do
Is
javelin.
that just for safety?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you have a kid that's throwing 190 feet, it's hard to have a place that you can practice that very easily. A lot of those metro schools, I think, don't play at their own high school, say for football. So you got to have like a 100-yard field close to it to
Do they?
that safe.
How do they feel about lawn darts?
I don't know too much about lawn darts.
Was that after or before your time as well, Rock? Is lawn darts?
I remember that this was mentioned on our last episode, something about lawn darts, but at this point, it's out of my brain. Is this related to Morris Buttermaker or whatever? No?
No, lawn darts was a yard game growing up where you would have a dart with a heavy metal tip and you would put a hoop out. And the object of lawn darts was to land your dart inside the hoop. But the heavy metal tip proved to be problematic. So lawn darts now are
Doesn't exist.
a relic.
Lawn dart fights were a good time.
You're not.
There were a lot
you
of
serious?
injuries
Oh,
in
yeah.
lawn darts
It's a cousin of Roman candle fights. And
Yeah. Wow.
with trash cans or shooting BB guns at people.
So bringing it back to track, our first meet this year is at Mount Baker. They, I wouldn't describe their facility as bleeding edge. They often have to host their home meet with Ferndale, and they co-host it because Mount Baker doesn't quite have enough people to go around. But they're nice, cordial, very welcoming up there. So we'll get that first one out of the way, a little taste to start the season, and then after that, we have a couple invitationals. That's the interesting thing about track is that we've got our league meets during the week, but then we have some Saturday meets, and for your high-end athletes, those are the ones that they're normally looking forward to. Of course, I don't know if you guys know this, but our track program is part of the Skagit County Track and Field Championships, and those are 115 years running, the longest running, I believe, definitely track and field event in the state, but I don't know whether...
That would be, I think, swap. I don't know. That's probably the longest and greatest event in Skagit County history.
So where is that going to be held this year?
I believe it's at Kirkby Field, which would be Burlington.
Is it always in Burlington?
It's not always in Burlington. It's a bit of an issue as far as where it gets hosted because no one really wants to host it. It's kind of a pain in the butt, honestly, to put on a track and field meet for many reasons, one of which is when you're putting a meet on, you're running it, which means you aren't really coaching. I don't know if you can imagine that as coaches yourselves. You're going to run this thing and not actually coach your team out there. Not very good.
I was once a middle school athletic director, and when we would
No
host
way.
our...
I didn't know that.
It's true. And when we would host our track meet for the year, it was the worst 2 or 3 days of my life.
Was that Mount Baker Middle School?
It was.
Mount Vernon.
Wow.
Hey, real quick, Ruck, on the track recap. Who are a couple teams other than Anacortes that you think would compete for like the league title?
Well, Seaham Unfortunately, I have to say the word Seahome.
Because they were good in cross country too.
Do you think Seahome might be? Remember, like the East Germans used to do like blood doping and stuff like that. Do you think Seahome is doing anything illicit?
Well, here's the deal. Seahome has a long history of being very successful in track and field and cross country. So if you are coming up in the Bellingham School District, which includes 3 high schools, you can make that choice probably pretty early to say, I want my kids to go to Seahome. And so I would imagine there is some natural funneling that would occur. But they're dominant in pretty much all of the aspects of track and field. They have a sprinter who right now sprints nationally. He's committed to USC. They have a long distance runner who's committed to University of Northern Arizona, or Northern Arizona, I guess is what they would say. And they're one of the top cross country programs. They're elite. CM is.
Do you know what kind of numbers they get for the track and field team?
I don't. I don't know off the top of my head. I imagine that our number we have this year is probably pretty similar to what their normal numbers are.
I know in tennis, competing against them, a good year for us is 40, and they get about 90 to 95 kids every year.
Hey, speaking of that, we forgot to mention fall 2022 league champs, Anacortes Seahawks, and Mr. Brad Moore was the head coach.
Maybe the greatest, well, undoubtedly the greatest tennis season maybe in Anacortes history.
For sure.
But I think this possibly, we'll see how the spring goes. This could be the greatest year in sports for Anacortes High School.
It's been a special year, that's for sure.
Real quick, how was your tennis season?
It was phenomenal. We had 14 seniors, and we had some freshmen that were kids who play quite a bit, and then everywhere in between. We had a lot of kids that were all in, and with tennis, that's not always the case. But I can't lie. Having a bunch of seniors who've played for 4 years and who know how to compete really helps in the process. And we had some great ones, just great kids in the program.
That was the first time in Anacortes history for a league title against Seahome. Is it the Bellingham schools always the ones that are always good?
Yeah. With having a tennis club, they're able to play
Indoor.
And they have great programs up there. Seahome actually, it makes me chuckle. Seahome has a great tennis program. They're always at the top, and then the rest of us kind of battle it out with them. Seahome and Bellingham are phenomenal.
I invite anyone in our listening audience to come out to a tennis match in late September, October on a beautiful Indian summer. Can I say that?
Oh,
We have we do in September and October.
You said it.
Do you want me to fact check whether that's okay? And then
I think you can say
what?
that.
Hey, by the way, it's one of the best places to watch a tennis match, I think.
Which is what I was
in
going to
the
say.
United States.
It's unbelievable.
It's beautiful.
You watch tennis and you're overlooking the water, and on the horizon is Mount Baker. It's the most beautiful venue.
And the base of the Cascades. It's awesome.
It's just one more reason to
Love
count on-
Anacortes.
That's right.
Hey, so before we move on to our next topic to talk about, can we just recap as a reminder where are we at with the teams as far as you said this is going to be one of the greatest seasons possibly that Anacortes has had. Football was top 8. What were they?
State quarterfinals,
Okay.
tennis league champs,
Yeah.
girls cross country,
Second in state.
Girls swimming was
Second in state.
Boys swim and dive.
second in state.
and basketball.
Boys basketball,
Made it
league
to
champs,
state.
district
League-
champs, state participant.
Correct.
Bowling? Do we know what
Bowling.
happened with bowling?
They had state participants. What about wrestling? Wrestling had an
Oh,
unprecedented
wrestling.
year.
Wrestling might have had the best team year in the history of Anacortes. I think we were actually 9th in state as a team, but we took 12 wrestlers to state.
And one of our good friends, the Kerrs, Talon, who started wrestling in 7th grade, I believe.
Yes.
he, as a sophomore, was it 5th or 6th? But he placed last year, and then Rylan Lang was 3rd. We had, I don't know any of the others, but one of the best of all time. Like right now, our youth program is amazing.
For wrestling?
Yes. Like
It is.
we're going to be good, even though we don't have a wrestling room, which is a topic on another.
We went and watched this year, and I hadn't watched a lot of wrestling in a while, and it was a lot of fun. It was great energy, and that was a good time. I
It's
will go back.
captivating.
Yeah,
I want to bring that back like wrestling does, where you turn out the lights. I want the spotlight for basketball, like they do at state tournament. They do it at Mount Vernon. They've done it at others. We used to do it 1990, Mr. Swap.
We did. We came out of the locker room to the theme of 2001.
Space
And
Odyssey.
we did. It was a whiteout in the gym, which I don't think you can have anymore. But I remember coming out of the locker room being nervous for warm-ups.
Oh, it was amazing. So I want to bring that back because they do it at wrestling.
What would it take? What?
It won't take much. I don't think so. I want to come out like we used to come out for the Chicago Bulls.
What about the Sonics anthem? That's one of the best ever.
There's a Sonics anthem?
Yeah, well, the first announcing starters,
I didn't know that.
there is.
I've never been to a Sonics game.
Oh, my gosh, Rock.
Well, he what?
They were
What-
taken. They were taken from me during my childhood.
What year were you born?
1988.
When did they leave? 96?
No.
No, 96
It was
was
like-
was when they played
Durant
the
played 1 year here.
Okay.
I'm gonna guess 2004. That's what I say.
Bulls. I'm gonna say 2007.
2007.
Oh, 96 was Peyton Kemp.
It's
What do you-
where we were about to dominate the Bulls until Gary Payton talked a little smack, and then it was over.
That's right.
Years active, 1967 to 2008, one championship. But you know what? Yeah, let's rip them away from one of the greatest cities in the nation. So that's fine. Now they can toil away in Oklahoma City, where Oklahoma City Thunder have the lowest fan participation rates in the NBA this season. Good choice.
I still blame.
Howard
Clay
Schultz.
Bennett and Howard Schultz.
Maybe even throw Wally Walker in there. Just because.
He was a terrible player.
Wally Walker, he has a
Yeah.
ring.
I know. But he probably averaged 5 points a game and 4.9 rebounds.
How many did you average when you were in the NBA, Jason?
Ooh,
In my mind,
Shot fired.
12 points.
I still want to know what we did to David Stern. What did we do? Because something happened, and it's still carrying over to Adam Silver.
It is. And David Stern, remember the press conference where he like threw shade at us?
There's a lot of malice from him, and I don't understand why. I can't really talk too much bad about him since he's no longer with us, but
Rest in peace, David Stern.
I think we're going to have a team back in 3 years. With Climate Pledge coming, and we have the Kraken. Great facility. I have not been there yet. We
It's a
will talk
great-
about it.
it's a
in
great
here.
concert venue.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's
we'll
so
talk
good.
about it here soon. The
Oh
venues.
my gosh.
Well, I mean, even during the Kraken game, there's a concert going on. Like up top, they have a little spot where during the game there's a live band playing. It's amazing.
The band right now is Nightwave, and they played at our wedding reception.
I've seen.
Oh, no
I've
way.
seen Nightwave.
And they're coming to
This is why
Anacortes
Signdog's on the
They're coming to
podcast.
Anacortes next
September
fall.
30th.
And Mr. Moore, I believe that I saw you do a guest appearance as lead singer for Nightwave.
There was a little bit of singing there.
Did you do a Clash song?
I did. I'm not sure if it was appropriate for a wedding reception, but should I stay or should I go?
Oh, that's awesome.
It was really because I knew it better. Being put on the spot, I knew it better than most songs.
That was
but,
the-
You weren't making any kind of a statement.
not a bit. No,
Okay,
it was
I-
a great wedding reception.
I'm not sure that the future Mrs. Moore was pleased with your choice of song.
That was one of the biggest disappointments I've ever had because I couldn't go.
It was
My
a
sister's
magical
wedding.
night, but
Same day, and she was a little late on her planning. Just it was tough because of COVID. They had to reschedule the wedding, and she's like, "Hey, we have a wedding and we're going to do it on September 30th. I'm like, okay, we'll be
In
there.
Hood River.
Hood River, Oregon. Amazing. But I
It's a
heard you
great place
guys
to
had
ride
a
mountain bikes. I hear
It's a great
I heard you had a
mountain bike.
great time at your
we
wedding.
did. We'll have a good time in September.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Hey,
shout out to Nightwave.
Yeah.
we have a few topics still left to get to, so I think we're going to take our break right here before we dive into 80s hair bands, which I'm personally looking forward to because I wasn't really alive during it. But when I
You were
played
88.
well, to really experience it, the 2 years that I was alive, wasn't very cognizant of all the wonderful bands that existed, but I did enjoy them. That was always what I listened to right before I went on the field to play football. And then after that, we're going to talk about our beer of the week and a little shout out related to that and top 3 concerts of all time. See you after the break. All right, and welcome back to the last part of View from the Rock, episode 3, and we're going to be talking about 80s hair bands, which, despite being born in the 80s, I don't think I know too much about, but I did listen to quite a few of them. So, first of all, I'm kind of curious, what actually defines an 80s hair band? Papa Swappa, can you inform me?
It's tough to answer. I think like the Supreme Court used to say about pornography. I think if you see it, you know it.
Oh, wow. That's
All
great.
right. Let's go.
Signdog, what do you think defines a hair band?
I mean, there's some original hair bands that, I mean, you think of makeup, big hair. I mean, you think of Motley Crue, and I don't want to give away all of my list, but are the bands that didn't dress up in makeup, are they considered hair bands? Is Bon Jovi a hair band? I mean, I think they are. Somebody asked earlier, is Aerosmith a hair band?
I don't think Aerosmith's a hair band.
I don't think they'd be just straight old classic rock, right?
Yeah, they debuted in the 70s. And I know they disappeared for a while and then Run DMC and they came back, but I think before the hair band era, I think Aerosmith was like a classic rock band.
Who was the original hair band that you can think of?
So somewhere up there, the hair band gods or the rock gods are probably going to strike me down with a bolt of lightning. But Signdog, I think Kiss.
I don't think you're wrong.
Hey, but they started in the 70s.
I know, but I think when you look at like
So we're talking 80s hair bands.
I know, but I think if you made like a timeline and did some, cultural anthropology on hair bands, I think Kiss might be right at the genesis of what it was that made a hair band.
Do you think it was kind of like Kiss did their thing and they became what bands like these in the 80s were trying to emulate? Therefore, they were the original hair band. It's just that they were not maybe technically included as one of those 80s hair bands.
What do you think, Signdog?
I don't know. I mean, you look at kind of the theatrical rock, and I mean, Bowie is definitely not a hair band, but Bowie may have been the impetus for a lot of other hair bands.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a genre in there that is glam, and I think Bowie was glam.
Yeah.
So glam,
Yeah, true.
80 glam or 80 rock? So because you look at some of these, like Van Halen, Aerosmith, Bon Jovi. If you talk about big hair, they had it.
Yeah, I actually don't think I'd put Van Halen as a hair band.
So do you just put them as a rock band? And we're talking about hair bands, like, well, in just a second, but like I consider when you say 80s hair band, I think of Rat.
Oh, Stephen Pearcy.
Round and round.
Warren
like when I
DeMartini.
1986, I was listening to Rat all
That
the
was
time.
a great video.
Oh,
Back when videos
Cinderella.
were the thing.
Cinderella is, I've talked to everyone in this room, I think, about this. I think Cinderella is super underrated.
They're pretty good.
They could write songs. Tom Kiefer.
Don't know what you got till it's gone.
Come on, a little piano in there. That was magical.
Long Cold Winter.
Oh yeah.
Coming Home.
Yeah, I think they have to be included in hair bands, but they're almost like into that crossover into the 90s.
So
You think Cinderella?
Almost. I mean, they go hair band and they kind of go a little bit different.
Well,
with the
well,
sound.
yeah.
I don't see Scorpions on there.
Ooh. Well, they're German.
I mean, isn't
But
Def Leppard English?
Can you be a European and be a hair band?
Oh yeah.
So I think
there's
another big thing with hair bands is a lot of them came out of kind of the L.A. scene, Motley Crue, Poison, L.A. Guns.
L.A. Guns.
Yeah, Ballad of Jane.
But it can't. I think it's universal. So this might be a different episode, but you have to think about it. Like, is it just hair, or is it makeup and just that '80s LA scene that we're talking about? Because when you talk about hair, everyone in the band except for the lead singer for Judas Priest, or is that heavy metal?
That's metal.
So that's considered metal.
Rock gods.
Because that's just like Metallica. They were doing their thing.
So Guns N' Roses is considered metal,
Yeah.
but they were the last, I think, the end of hair bands.
Unless you listen to The Darkness, who brought it back, which is
Oh,
The Darkness is one of the best bands ever.
Have you seen them in person?
I haven't. I want
Ruck
to.
has. I want to go.
That's the only thing I have on Signdog.
Yeah. Oh no!
they're
If they
so
come back,
good.
I'm in. I would love to see The Darkness.
So, hey, I'm going to just name some bands, hair bands, and let's just go freestyle right here. Give me thoughts on the following bands. White Lion.
Wait.
I know that's one
that
of your
correct?
favorite- Isn't that your all-time favorite swap?
I like White Lion. Vito Bratta, Mike Tramp.
Isn't that what Yellow Dog was inspired by?
We did do a little, Yellow Dog used to do a little White Lion. We would do When Children Cry. That was a showstopper.
I can't imagine that was an easy.
Hey, why
song
don't you
to
give a
sing,
shout
so-
out to your White Lion or to your Yellow Dog band?
Dana Christensen, B.R. Covey, Scott Parnell, Yellow Dog. And White Lion also did a tremendous cover of Radar Love.
Really?
Yes.
Originally by Golden Earring, right?
Golden Earring.
Wow.
Good for you, Ruck.
Nice job, Ruck. Okay, how about this one? Faster Pussycat.
Yeah, they're good. I was never into Faster Pussycat much, but they're good.
I'm gonna say I've never heard of the last two
What
bands you
was
said.
their big song?
They had their big song was something about the bathroom wall.
I found your number on the bathroom wall.
Boom, there it is.
Okay.
And then they also had House of Pain, later covered by the White Buffalo.
Oh, that's a good song.
House of Pain's a good song. How about Kicks?
Isn't
Wasn't
that
his
a
last name
cereal?
Kicks? Wasn't the lead singer's last name Kicks?
Might have been. Other hair bands.
So you're going.
I like it.
Oh, I like it.
I like every part of it.
What else you got?
Well, we mentioned LA Guns. Man, I'm starting to draw a blank here.
Who's your all-time favorite?
You know who we haven't talked about? Poison. And I think they are, I think their debut album was, help me out here, Signdog. Was it Look What the Cat Dragged In?
It is.
And if you have seen that album cover, I mean, that's hairband personified.
Oh.
Because there's the four dudes that are heavily maked up with like 80s female perms. And I say this? They look like chicks.
There's nobody more made up than CC DeVille.
So
That
can
dude
you
was-
name any other than CC DeVille? Can you name the other band members?
I believe we had Ricky Rocket,
That's two.
Brett Michaels.
That's three. I cannot name the fourth. That's the only three I can
Ricky
name.
Rocket was the drummer. Brett Michael. Bobby
So
Dahl.
we're
Bobby
not-
Dahl
we're-
was the bassist.
Oh, who was it?
Bobby Dahl.
Oh, see, I can't. I would never have known that.
I think. Yeah. I was big into Poison back in the
All
day.
right. So, hey, real quick, here's mine. When I think about it, I think about I just started listening to music in 86, 87.
Yeah.
Motley Crue, for sure. Mm-hmm. I told you Cinderella, Poison, Rat. Like, Rat just got to me.
Round and Round.
Oh, Stephen Pearcy was amazing. I'm in love with Def Leppard. Like
It's almost related to your love of Nickelback. They're almost in the same family as Nickelback.
no, we can't. Def Leppard, man. I mean, Hysteria, but Rock of Ages, early Def Leppard, but Hysteria was like middle school it was.
Bringing On a Heartbreak is a great song.
But when you hear Hysteria, Rocket,
Dude, Love Bites.
Love Bites.
Love Bites,
That gets me right there in the heartstrings.
and
every
you
time.
weren't even born yet.
A little Pyromania.
Yeah.
Photograph.
Was
the
that's
biggest song.
that album, Rocket, Photograph,
So is the name of that album Pyromania?
Yes.
Okay.
that was where, living here in this area, and my neighbor was Vic Lindsay, who is 1 year older than Swap, but they got me on all that, and we're in middle school. We didn't have anything else. We had all those bands. We'd have a dance once a month, and that's all they'd play.
Yeah.
Hey, let me throw at you.
1988.
Let me throw at you a little Whitesnake.
That's what I was gonna.
Oh
Thank
yeah.
you.
Oh, dude, I forgot
Dude,
about
here
that.
I go again.
Tawny.
Tawny Katane.
Yeah. I mean, that was every teen boy's fantasy.
But when you
right?
think about it, though, When we in 1988, 87, 88, there was a lot of ballads.
Oh, sure.
So you're at a dance. That's what you're
And-
slow dancing.
Yes,
waiting for
every
slow dance.
fourth song. You're waiting for Home Sweet Home to come on, and you're going to find
Or
whoever it is.
every rose has its thorn.
Oh, that might have
yeah.
been the best.
That's where you're just like, oh, I'm taking her right now. We're
And you
slow
know,
dancing.
what? We talked last episode about PBRs at 2.8, and the world needs 2.8s. Most hair bands are 2.8s. If we're going to get right down to it,
That's a real solid comparison.
and there's a place for them.
I can't believe I forgot about Whitesnake too.
Hey,
I'm sorry, Ruck.
I have a clarifying question because this band just came into my mind. I don't think they're a hair band, but being young-ish, Styx.
So Styx is
There might-
70s.
Like prog rock? Is that?
I think they'd be
Styx?
prog rock, maybe right there with who else would be prog rock?
Would ELO be there?
ELO.
no, what is?
I
I'm
did play a
sorry.
little ELO
Those-
yesterday.
those-
What
two are
does
similar
prod
in my
rock
mind.
mean? Because when I think of ELO, I think of 70s. Styx.
Well, prog rock was, it's short for progressive rock, but it was
Okay.
just kind of like experimental,
Synthesizers and crap.
a little more
Okay.
dreamy rock.
Yeah.
You have ELO. and
Okay, so you have ELO.
You might throw Jethro Tull. in
I
there,
was
maybe?
going to just say Jethro Tull.
Really?
I saw them in concert, which is going to come up later on. They had their lead singer. A lot of people think Jethro Tull is the guy. No, Jethro Tull is the band.
What is his name?
Ian Anderson.
Ian Anderson.
Yeah. Tremendous flautist.
He is a
I
fabulous-
think Swap just gave away something, but
Well, maybe that means that we should head on to our next segment.
Give me just.
yeah,
You guys
go
have
ahead.
said them already, and I'll just. Motley Crue for me was the band. Starting with Too Fast for Love, I probably played 50,000 hours of Motley Crue for 3 or 4 years. So that's definitely my number one, and I still think they're the best in my opinion. Rat was up there for me, and then I have to admit, Heather would not let me get away with it. But Def Leppard, they're not really hair band, but they're kind of hair band. Def
So with
Leppard,
that-
Def Leppard for me was everything.
so Def Leppard then. Well, I think still Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, they're kind of the
If
bridge
you're talking
between 80s
about
and
Def
90s,
Leppard
right?
and all that, then Guns N' Roses was the end.
So
and
if Guns N' Roses,
is my number one.
if they're a hair band, they're my number one. I'm not 100% sure they're a hair band.
So then we might have to redo that and just say, on a different one, like, are they considered rock? Like hair bands that just wear makeup and big hair?
I think they're the bridge between hair bands and alternative.
I 100% agree. They even toured with Alice in Chains. And I think one thing we can all agree on is Guns N' Roses was damn good.
I still think it's the 2 best guitar solos of all time in November Rain. That's the best.
Hey, and we haven't even talked about Twisted Sister.
Oh,
We haven't talked about Warrant. We haven't talked about Slaughter,
What about Striper?
Striper,
Dawkin.
Great White.
See, all those bands for me, that was, you're going to turn it up to 11 and you're going to go do some sort of sporting event for me. And that would just get me there where I needed to be. Like Kickstart My Heart. That was the last thing I heard before
I
every
play that
football
every
game.
day in PE. Oh, it's amazing.
That might lead into like the best guitar riffs of all time.
Well, hey, real quick, what about like when you watch a Twisted Sister video? When I show my kids, they're like, "What is this?"
And they don't
Remember
understand.
when the dad's like, "I don't understand."
And it was the guy that played Niedermeyer in Animal House. So it was all kinds of stuff happening.
And it was great for us. And it was
was.
like, "I want to rock." Oh, just boom.
I just remember my dad's reaction to those posters being on my wall in Ellensburg, Washington in 5th grade, looking at me like, what is wrong with you? But, you know,
Quiet Riot.
Oh, come on, feel the noise.
who was the guy who had the chainsaw? Was that Jackal?
Jackal. They did. I was just listening to Channel 39, Sirium XM radio, Hair
bands?
Nation.
Yeah.
And Jackal came on, and they had a song that uses a chainsaw. And it was, what is the name of that song? It's
It's not Chainsaw Charlie, is it?
no.
Isn't that one?
I'm going to look it up while we're on here. Not Chainsaw Charlie.
Was Rail kind of the end of the hair metal, or are we getting too deep?
I think we're getting in a rabbit hole right
Okay.
there. Jackal, who apparently is still on tour.
You know, okay, isn't a hair metal band, whatever you want to call it, when they have reached a certain age, one of the saddest things to see at that point? Like, they aren't even close to what they used to be most of the time, I feel like.
Well, none of us are, Ruck. But
It's true, but I feel like it's such a departure from what you remember them as that it's, for me,
yes. Seeing Motley Crue a few years ago in the Tacoma Dome, Vince Neil did not impress. There were a lot of backing tracks going on. He just couldn't hit it like he used to. But it's still hair metal is as much about the show as it is anything else, right? So
absolutely. Hey, so Swap, do you find anything out before we go on to?
The Lumberjack is the name of the song with the chainsaw.
That makes sense.
And it's like a real bluesy kind of thing, but they just throw a little chainsaw in there.
Blues hair metal band?
Well, it's kind of like a classic like blues riff to it. It's not like a lot of hair bands. It's a 2.8. But there's a chainsaw. I mean, it's like a quarter pounder with cheese where you throw bacon on it.
Hey, real quick, is it a 1 or a 0?
It's a 1.
Okay.
It's not cauliflower.
That's how we do it.
Wow.
So, Brad, if you don't know, it's if you are trying to identify who's good or who's not, it's not out of a 5 or a 10. It's a 1 or a 0,
okay,
and that's how you do it. It makes it easy.
yeah.
All right, you ready?
This is according to Jason. The rankings
I
he
think
introduced to us last week.
I think there's like 70 people that are on board with me.
Okay. Well,
70. Nice round number of 70.
hey, you know what? 60% of the audience agrees with you every time, right? Something like that.
Jason has tens of converts.
Hey, speaking of things that Jason wants to tell us about that he might not actually know that much about, tell us about our beer of the week, Miss Morgie.
Oh, wait.
Oh, there was an error in the show. Are we going to need to go to break before we talk about our beer of the week?
I think we need a break.
Okay, we can do a break.
Let's go to a break.
All right, welcome from the impromptu break here on the View from the Rock podcast. Sometimes things don't go the way they're planned. Today, we are talking about our beer of the week, and this is a beer in a brewery that has a special place in our hearts, not only because a friend of the podcast shared it with us, but also this brewery I've actually been to down in... The brewery is in Carlsbad, I think the original one, but I was in San Diego when I went there. It's called Pizza Port, and they have phenomenal pizza. I'm going to let Morgie tell us a little bit more about this beer after we crack our cans. Oh, that's a hard to open. Oh, you guys, that's a two-hander. Oh man.
So this is the Chronic Ale, which is an amber ale, and like Ruck said, Pizza Port Brewing Company in Carlsbad, 4.9% alcohol by volume. Untapped gives it a 3.7 out of 5 with about 45,000 views, which means swap. That's not very many.
No, that's not very many views in the world of Untapped.
So their motto is good beer brings good cheer. Here's the history of the beer from the brewmaster. The beer is a longtime house favorite at their brew pubs, brewed with house yeast strain La Cruda. And English specialty malts. This mellow amber ale is lighter in flavor with a smooth bitterness. Sip, sip, cheers. So I'm going to take my first sip.
Sip, sip. Cheers.
Oh, that's nice.
That tastes good.
That's a nice
amber.
That is a nice amber.
You know, it's kind of amazing. The flavor that it has makes it seem like there's a lot more alcohol or something like it's a lot in to chew on. I don't think it's a beer that I could just have multiple of. It's a heavy tasting beer despite it being 4.9. It's good though.
Yeah, it definitely has a thickness to it.
Yeah.
It almost feels like a Scotch ale more than an amber.
Yeah.
What do you guys think you would pair this with?
I was thinking that was going to be a darker amber. Like when I do Alaskan amber or Mac and Jacks, this is lighter to me.
Really?
Well, maybe, or I haven't had them in 15 years.
So I just want you to think about, if you're having this with a meal or an appetizer.
Well, I was thinking shot, like what shot I would pair it with.
What meal?
The shot pairing with the beer, like what do they call that? The beer back? Mm-hmm. I'm happy that people like to do that. I can't wrap my mind around that one because in my mind I go, that shot I'm taking prevents me from having another tasty beer.
I mean, you just think you drink with anybody that has a double. A shot and a beer is the same thing.
I know,
Instead of a double?
but I'm just thinking I can have more beers when I have less of those shots.
Oh, yeah.
Because I like to taste a lot of different beers. I feel like I'm always chasing the dragon. Like I want to find the next great beer flavor as I'm drinking a beer. And so if I'm at a brewery I haven't been to, I'm trying to find a different one.
So, John, what do you consider chasing the dragon?
Well, I think that originally, does that come from like opium dens?
I was just thinking about Mr. Brownstone with Guns N' Roses.
I was thinking about the Johnny Depp movie where he does chase the dragon. Not actually chasing the dragon, but he mentions it when he's doing what's the green liquor or is it,
Absinthe?
Absinthe.
Oh,
I've actually had absinthe.
Was it where he was
In Vegas.
It's not Sweeney Todd, but it's the one where he's in London. Heather Graham's in it.
I'm usually good at these things, but I'm not right now.
But when you think about chasing the dragon in terms of alcohol,
Yeah. Okay. So for me,
Trying to find the perfect beer.
Well, there are some times where you've had exceptional beer experiences. One of the first times I had a beer where I go, I need to have some more of that was a Russell Cream Ale. It was just across the border. I was 19, and it was at a little fish and chip shop in White
White
Rock.
Rock. Thank you. And so, this is my psychology major hat I'm putting on right now. But I think that we're often influenced by the environment around us. So me being a 19-year-old, I'm out at a bar maybe for the first time. And
Was this on a Wednesday night at going up from Western?
I don't, at this point in my life, that's a long time ago, 16 years.
Oh my, that's funny.
And
16 years.
well, so I have this beer and it like blows me away. And ever since then, I kept trying to go across the border, and every time I'd go to a place, I'd ask if they had that, and it wasn't very common. The Russell Brewing Company didn't ship their beer across the border, so it wasn't something I could find down here. And ever since then, it sort of like haunts my brain that I have never had that exact taste. It was this like sweet vanilla richness that's like has a lot of roastiness to it that just kind of, tickles your tongue. The other one that I've chased is the hazy craze. Like all the hazies, the juicies, the New England IPAs that are out there today. Super popular. Fruity, kind of that orange juice flavor to it. My brother lived in Boston during COVID, and I had planned to visit him until COVID hit. And they have, as you can imagine, a couple New England IPAs that are exceptional, probably many that are exceptional considering it's the New England area. And so he brought back a couple from, I believe it was Treehouse Brewing. One was called King Julius. And I mean, it was like I was drinking this sweet orange juice. And all it is hops. It's not like they put orange juice in it. And ever since then, when I'm trying to get a hazy or a juicy IPA, I mean, it's just, I'm hoping for it, but I'm not expecting that. But like, that's what I'm chasing.
King Julius sounds amazing. That's a great name for a beer.
I think the key to a lot of these beers now is the marketing, the artistry on the can, if I'm to be completely honest. And I think the Chronic Ale from Pizza Port Brewing Company gets an A+ on their artistry. Now, we have in our presence right now an expert artist in terms of marketing. Signdog, what do you have to say? Do you have anything to illuminate us with in terms of beer artistry?
Well, as far as the Chronic Ale, it definitely sets a vibe, for sure. It makes me want to be on that beach,
Oh, yeah, 100%.
waist deep in the water with one of these in my hand, drinking it just fast enough so it doesn't get warm. That kind of
In
sets
like
that tone for me.
85-degree weather.
Yes.
So
That
what's
was-
that, about 2 minutes?
That was almost poetry.
2 minutes of drinking? Well, hey, real quick, a shout out to our great podcast friend,
Friend
John
of the
Richards.
podcast. Friend of the podcast. What's his name again, Jay?
John Richards.
Yep.
He contacted me about this and was so excited. So his future son-in-law's parents are from California and got him hooked on this beer.
It's a great beer.
Thank you, John.
And John has been a friend of the podcast from day one.
Legendary family man, good friend. His kids, great. His son played hoops in town. I know he's listening right now.
And he's the only Oregon Duck fan that I can tolerate.
He is, I can't believe it. He is the nicest Oregon Duck fan I've ever met.
It almost makes me think he's a fake Oregon Duck
He is not.
because none of them are nice.
Well, I think it's easy to be nice when they beat us like 12 times in a row. Up until this last year, then you find out how nice people really are.
And he was the nicest man in the world when we won. And Swappa and Morgie and others were celebrating.
It was, I think he felt good for us because we had won. And a lot of the Oregon boys,
They can suck it because they were. I'm sorry. Come on.
I
You've
missed
won
that.
14 out of 17, maybe.
Let the record show that it took an hour and 8 minutes into the podcast to have Jay Morgie give us one of his
Famous.
legendary, famous, infamous quotes. Suck it.
I think I did that earlier.
No way.
Yes. Like at minute, maybe 30 minutes in.
But was it sort of like they can suck it?
Well,
It wasn't as emphatic as this one.
I feel
this
like that was just part of
I
conversation.
love John. We love John.
John's a good dude.
friend of the podcast.
We love all the Oregon boys too. I love you. Don't be mad at me.
Going
just
back to
not
the
as much as
dragon,
John.
Yeah. Hey,
You have me thinking about chasing the dragon.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, I can never have any beer that tastes as good as the first time I had a Scotch ale at Boundary Bay Brewery back in the day. Like, I've never had a beer that will ever match that first one because I'd never had anything like it.
I think those first times, I think the environment, think a lot of those are the reasons why in our mind we have those things that we're chasing. I know the oatmeal stout that they have also is one of those for me. And then I'm getting some thumbs down.
You get F. According to Mr. Moore at the middle school, you get F.
You know, I like to I try all kinds of different fermented beverages, and the oatmeal was enjoyable.
So have you had the sours?
You know, there's a time of the year that I can drink sours, and it's when it's above 80 degrees in Washington. So not very often.
I don't think my palate's mature enough to have a sour.
The sours are, they're not great.
They're off limits for me because I don't like them. But, you know, there is a boy, you know.
Stop. What?
I just don't like them.
They're off limits for you because you don't like them.
Yes. So, but one of my good buddies, Brent Wismer. The Wiz.
Nobody beats the Wiz.
He only drinks, he loves the sours. Like, he'll send a picture of a sour, and I want to throw up.
Hey, so as great as that mental imagery is, this segment that we just had, we were striving for brevity, and here we are. So, shall we move it along to top 3 concerts? I'm getting some thumbs up here. All right.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about our top 3 concerts, and by top 3, I mean top 2. Correct?
And then we're going to save the last one.
And then we're saving the last one for the end.
Okay.
So we're doing 3 and 2, and then 1.
One last.
Okay, so we're starting with our third one.
Correct.
Second one, and after
And then
everyone's done
after.
3, 2. Okay.
Yes.
You know, math. So let's have our guest start us off. Signdog, 3, 2. Go.
Oh, my.
This is
Hold on. Before we do this,
Yes.
What?
Brad, how many concerts have you really been to?
I don't know. I've never counted, but I worked at the Gorge for 5 years, better part of 5 years. Started my freshman year of high school, with my first concert being Bob Dylan and Tracy Chapman.
Ooh.
I'm a big Tracy Chapman fan. Not as much Dylan, but I love little Tracy.
Fast cars.
Fast.
Fast cars.
And that's probably not his favorite song.
It's up there. That's a good one. I kind of just, yeah, we could talk about that song for a whole podcast. But I worked out there, and so I would see 20 to 30 concerts. I would work them. I would work stage crew, work chair crew, and me and my buddies would be out there for 3 or 4 days. We would camp, and we would do all these different things and see every show. We get most of the time we had the show off, so we could watch all the shows from Sting to Fleetwood Mac to Jimmy Buffett, which don't at me, but I'm not a big Jimmy Buffett fan. But we saw tons of shows, and so it was really just the best job imaginable. So I've seen quite a few shows, and I could talk about this forever. Anybody who knows me knows I would talk about live music all day, every day. But I've probably seen 300 to 350 shows. Heather and I, it's one of the things we love to do most. We both love to go see live music. So we try to do it as often as we can. So I could go on forever, but I will just, my third, this has been very difficult to narrow it down to top 3. So I had to think of the moments and the energy and like what it meant. So number 3 was seeing the Tragically Hip in Rogers Arena for their last concert when they knew the lead singer was gonna pass away within 2 months. I think he had 3 shows after that.
Yeah.
And just seeing the connection to the crowd and knowing what it took for him to be on the stage, it was so powerful.
And terminal cancer, correct?
Yeah, it was brain cancer. And so he had to relearn the songs, and he had this whole process he had to do it. So it was one of the more emotional concerts I've ever been to.
Real quick, wasn't their last show live streamed across Canada?
Yes. Yeah, I feel like they are one of the more underappreciated bands in rock and roll. I think
We spent several hours watching them in Hood River, though.
we did.
Yeah.
Hey, confession. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard them.
Oh my God!
Oh, you get F.
Oh, you
Hey,
get double
this
F.
is a safe space. You know,
This is a safe space, but
as a 35-year-old,
we're
I
going
haven't
to.
heard them.
Oh,
Josh Johnson would be very disappointed.
oh my God!
Okay, here's the worst part about me
You've
admitting
heard,
that.
You've
I've
heard
been-
that band at Josh's house.
Exactly. I've been a part of many conversations about them, and I've had people talk to me or around me about them a lot. And I just kind of nod my head, and I'm like, "Yep."
Josh right now is giving you double F.
Yeah.
We'll see if he's made it this far.
Concert number 2.
Concert number 2. It was the first concert Heather and I went to, and it was Stevie Wonder at it was Climate Pledge before it was Climate Pledge. He played the whole Songs in the Key of Life album. It was his 64th birthday, and he was incredible. Like, just we had the best time. He sounded better than the album, and I think it's one of the best albums of all time. So that's probably a surprise. You probably didn't expect that, but it was such a treat to see him.
What year?
We met in 2014. So yeah, that was maybe our third date, and that kind of set the tone for our relationship. We had to go see shows time and time again. So, but that was another magical 2 hours.
All right, Swap, you ready?
Man, and I don't even know what I'm going to say right now. It's just going to come out because I've been bouncing like 5 or 6 concert rounds in my head. But I'm going to go. So, 1992 Bumbershoot. Oh yes. And a couple of buddies and me were there all day. We saw Jimmy Cliff, and that is not my choice of concert number 3. But we're walking around at night, and there's a group called the Lovemongers that is in the Opera House.
Brad's shaking his head like he knows the band.
And we're going, you know
I
what?
do.
Let's go see the Lovemongers. And we walk over to the Opera House, and people are flocking to the Opera House. And we have no idea who the Lovemongers are. So we get in there, and the Opera House, if you've ever been there at the Seattle Center, is pretty small venue. And we got in there, and we got a couple seats. And the Lovemongers are Ann and Nancy Wilson.
What?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Yes. And then they're acoustical, and they're doing like Zeppelin songs.
Oh.
And it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
They have a song on the single soundtrack.
For the Lovemongers?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, Ruck?
I mean, I don't want to be a broken record, but I don't know who those two people are.
Oh, my
Anna
God.
and Nancy Wilson.
He does not know who Hart is.
Oh, Heart?
Heart.
Oh, okay. Got it.
And it was amazing.
Wow.
And we had, I think what puts it in my top 3 is we had no idea. We were just 20 years old and dumb.
And then all of a sudden, they show up.
yeah, we're
And
like,
you thought you're like Lovemongers.
and
Who
we're
are
like,
they?
kind of like, who's this going to be, you know? And then it was Heart.
Battle of Evermore. Lovemongers. On
Yes.
Oh, no way. Oh,
Yeah.
with the Led Zeppelin cover.
Oh, dude. Speaking, yeah.
And I mean, and they're so good.
Yes.
Okay, so number 2, this is going to be a little bit obscure. It's not super obscure, but you wouldn't think this would be in my top 3. Maybe 1991, The Gorge, Don Henley. And I'm going to just give you a little context here. The Eagles were done. So as a boy growing up in the 80s, Hotel California is the best thing you've ever heard in your life. So Don Henley had some good solo stuff, End of Innocence, Heart of the Matter, couple other one, Boys of Summer, right? I mean, it's some good stuff, right? So we're going to go there. We're going to see Don Henley. So he's done. He comes out for his encore, and he's sitting at the drums. The sun's going down in the gorge, and and it's Hotel California.
Oh, my God. That would be amazing.
You have goosebumps right now.
Yes,
I
I
have
do.
goosebumps.
I do.
And I'm going to give you a little caveat to this one. Opening for Don Henley that night, and for every boy who grew up in the 80s, Susanna Hoffs.
Really?
Yes.
Eternal Flame.
The Bangles.
Oh, that's amazing. That's awesome.
Swapper, I worked that show.
Yeah. Hey, Swap. He's been looking at me like, oh yeah, I know that show.
So the Eagles were done. So you were never, ever going to see Hotel California again. And then 4 years later, hell freezes over. They do a tour.
And they played at the Gorge.
But how was that show though? That like
Hell freezes over?
no, the show you went to at the Gorge. Like that's your number 2.
Don Henley.
It was, and Don Henley is really good.
To be able to play drums
And sing and be the most iconic, top 5 iconic vocal performances ever. And play the drums while you're doing it.
I can't believe he can do that. Oh, that's awesome.
He's so good.
All right. What do you got, Mr. Morgenthaler?
Okay. My number 3.
Number 3, here it is.
Oh. So my number 3 is Audio Slave at La Luna in Portland, which hosts about 1,500. And it's like a stand around. It's not like, like you move around and do crazy stuff. It's like you're sitting down, you stand around, and it was like 2003, but just seeing Cornell with Rage was like, Morello was crazy. And then like Shadow of the Sun, I Am the Highway, Cochise, just all of them. I got to see them twice at that venue. And that venue doesn't exist anymore.
What part of Portland is it in?
Southeast.
Okay.
Can I ask this to Brad? You've seen many concerts, many guitarists. Where does Morello rank?
As far as live or just ever, period?
Live.
Oh, he's top 3.
Merlot? Top 3?
Top 3. Yeah, I don't know. I saw AC/DC in Vegas at the MGM, and
What year?
It was 2010, maybe. And just Angus Young is incredible. What a showman. So Morello's in the conversation. We could talk about the Rage show out at the Gorge, which was a life-changing moment too. But Morello's there. He's so good live.
We watch him on Sirius, or we listen. We don't
Yes.
watch him. He is amazing. That changed me watching that, but it was so small where there was no room for people aren't moving. You're just watching.
So there wasn't a big
No,
pit or anything.
there was a mosh pit.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's a small venue, 2,000 people. So my number 2 was Tool. It's amazing. At the Schnitz in Portland.
In case you're wondering sometimes why it's difficult for Morgie to talk, he has a dental appliance, I think we would call it.
Orthodonture.
which I didn't realize until today's show, and he mentioned it. So
That's because he's wearing his
had it-
headgear.
Yeah, he's had it for the last 4 months, so it's
I have
impressive.
braces.
Yeah, he has braces.
He chose
people.
to say the word schnitz.
Schnitz. Does that sound better? Schnitz.
As you were.
So Kelly dropped me off and went out with her friends. I went by myself. 1,900 people. So the Schnitz is like Seattle's version of maybe the Paramount.
The more is it smaller?
Maybe. But it's got like, you sit in different portions of the theater. It's like a theater. And Tool it blew my mind.
What tour was that?
So it was 2004. So Enema, maybe? Enema was like 02. But just them playing. And I focused on Danny Carey because I love drumming. My uncle was a drummer. I love Rush. Swap.
Swamp
but
does
gives
not
it
love
a,
Rush.
a frickin' F.
Not a Rush fan.
But Neil Peart was one of the best drummers of all time, even though. But Danny Carey's amazing,
He is.
and it was so good. So that was my second. That's my second show.
I like that.
All right, I'm gonna try to be quick here because I'm not as widely. I don't go to that many concerts. Haven't been to as many. Haven't had as much time to go to as many because
Until we go to the darkness.
you've got a few years on me. So I'm going to mention some of the ones I've actually been to because it's not that long of a list. One that I just remembered, which I don't know. I'm having a hard time not putting in my top 3, so I'm gonna save that. So Darkness, definitely one of the top concerts I've been to. Massive Attack was at the Gorge for Sasquatch when I went there, and I was sitting on the hill and I could just feel the bass in my chest, and I thought I was connected on a rocket ship. Oh, it was amazing. Girl Talk.
Was Tricky with them?
I don't think so. Yeah.
See, this is why we have Brad here, because he knows this. Swap and I know nothing.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I agree.
Brad is looking at you like, yeah, I was there.
So then this all happened. Almost all these concerts happened when I went to Western in that nice college 4 years where you can
Go Vikes.
do whatever you want. Girl Talk. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Girl Talk. Have you heard of them? They're like a mix artist. Like they mash up a lot of songs together, and it's like it's a house party. It was in the Viking Union. It was packed. That was an excellent time. Sufjan Stevens is a great multi-instrumental performer. I've seen him twice, I think. And the next band I've seen more than any other band in person. That's Dragon Force.
I don't know who Dragon Force is.
What?
Did you just give 4?
No, these are not even my top 3. You get.
Are we getting to your top 3?
We are. You guys have talked for so long. I don't have that much to actually say about them. Here's the one that almost makes my top 3 that you made me think of. April Wine.
Oh.
They were a Canadian kind of hair band, weren't they?
Are they Canadian? April
Shout out to Dirty Honey, by the way.
So I think I was.
And the Black Crows, baby.
Yes. Sorry, Rock.
So I must have been 19, and we went across the border for Canada Day. Free concert out in the lawn there across the border. There was so much green smells in the air that I had never smelled before in my life. And the drummer had a drum solo that was double bass drum solo, and it was wild. And the guy's probably 60 at the time. Like, it was amazing. So top 3 though. Number 3, Shins. I saw the Shins in Red Square at Western, and it was pouring rain. And halfway through the show, all the electrical equipment started malfunctioning, and they started just playing whatever they could that was up on stage, and were thrashing their instruments, and it was a good time. Everybody was soaked to the bone. And number 2, when I was at Sasquatch as well, was Mumford and Sons, and
Ooh, yeah.
it was like
really good, though. I've not
Little
seen them.
Lion Man.
it was their first album. They weren't super big yet because they were on one of the side stages, not on the main stage, and it was that time of the day coming where there's this wind, this warm breeze coming off the Columbia up to where we're at on that stage, and it was just so peaceful. It was amazing.
What year was that?
That would have been 2005. No, sorry, 2009.
And then they just took off after that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I don't have anything else to say. Back to number 1.
Weird. And I like that. I didn't know that's how you pronounce Sufjan Stevens or Sufjan Stevens.
Yeah, it's a silent J.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brad, you know things that no one else knows.
He's high-fiving every band that Ruck said, and I've never heard of any
Well, we
of
just
them.
saw the Shins at the Paramount like a month ago.
Oh,
Of course you did.
and
It was
Dragon
very
Force.
strange.
In case you didn't know, Dragon Force, they are a speed metal band, and they became famous with their song "Through the Fire and Flames" because when Guitar Hero came out, it was like the epically difficult song on there that no one could play.
Okay.
So there you go.
I'm going to fact-check that.
Go for it. Waste
Can we
your
go
time.
back to the chainsaw in The Jackal?
Okay, we're approaching an hour and a half.
The lumberjack.
Signdog,
Okay.
take us on with your number one.
Okay, number one. This is difficult. So since I'm a guest, I might have to have two, but
Can't have two. You have to have one.
the second one will be quick
I
because it's
just did
kind of
like
funny.
10, so it's fine.
Blind Melon,
Oh, wow.
Pearl Jam, Neil Young, and Crazy Horse at the Gorge.
Oh, my God.
It was a week after MTV Music Awards where Pearl Jam won an award, and they were kind of, jackasses about it. Sorry.
You're good.
And I was working the concert, and it was right when Versus came out, their second album, and the energy was, everything was like on full blast with the grunge. Even though it's a cringe-worthy word, it's the word. Everything was going full tilt with that, and after working out there for a while, I was really excited about. I mean, this is probably the show I wanted to see, and I worked the stage crew. And then at the time, my parents were doing catering out at the Gorge. So they would do all the catering for all the stars. And so it was I would bounce back and forth trying to get any sort of interaction I could with Pearl Jam because I was a nut about it. And met Eddie Vedder. So
What?
yeah, met Eddie Vedder, and he's not very tall. In backstage, and all I could say is it was after the concert because I had to go back to work after the concert. I met him and said, "Hey, that was a great show." That's all I could say, and I kind of stood there and looked at him. He's like, "Thanks," and walked off. And you know how you just sit there and think about all the things you
Is he
wish you could say.
5'7"?
Maybe. But it was the only time I ever saw Blind Melon, which I think is a really kind of underrated band.
For sure.
And then the Pearl Jam set where they played all of the new stuff that I'd never heard from Versus, Go and Animal and Daughter and trying to think of what else, Rats. But it was, and then I thought it couldn't get any better than Neil Young and Crazy Horse get on there and play a little Cortez the Killer,
Oh, no way.
Oh,
no,
my
God. No.
which
That's my number one.
That's your flag football or a fantasy football team name.
Yes.
I have a cover of that from Built to Spill
my
that is like 15 minutes long. Anyway, it was just such a transformational moment for me musically, and I was in the front of the crowd because I had a pass because I was working it, so I'd go out front, and I was right dead center in the middle of the crowd, and then I could walk back and kind of get water and go back out, and I worked, and one of the best parts about it is at the end of it, Dave Aberzies, the drummer who they fired, he trashed the Moon Man that they won at the MTV Music Awards. So I got the flag from the Moon Man, the MTV, like the silver flag,
Really?
and set lists and things. And so I got all the memorabilia from that show, and it's sitting in our music room. It's one of the prized possessions. But all that being said, it was such a great show, and I've seen them quite a few times, and I think it was my favorite, other than seeing them play with John McEnroe this last summer. Was kind of cool.
That sounds amazing.
So, there's a lot to unpack there. But when you said transformational, I think that we can all relate to being at a concert where the music, the time, the place, the environment, and everything coalesces, and it is transformational. And that's what we love about music.
Oh yeah,
It's crazy. When you said Cortez the Killer, when I first heard that song like 20 years ago, it changed my life. And now, he's not on Spotify. So we have to find him on other avenues, but just, everything is great.
Great bands and great beers, and balls, sports. They're all experiential and can change you. And there's something about it. The environment, hard to know, but afterwards you look back and you're like, it doesn't seem real.
no, that's one of the best parts about it is it seems like you're in a different world or you're in a dream while you're at a good show.
Yeah.
Music changes people's lives. Like when you think about now, our kids, They're like, "Hey, Dad, my AirPods are at 0. Can I borrow yours?" Because they're waiting for a game. Like, it's all about music
Oh yeah.
before a game. Swappy, what do you got? Number 1.
1992 Kitsap County Fairgrounds.
Holy shit!
Lollapalooza. We had
Sorry, I just cussed. We did it. I was the first one to do it.
we had Ministry, Jesus and Mary Chain, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Ice Cube, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and
And
it
Mr. Lifto.
and Mr. Lifto, which I will not talk about on this podcast.
No, sorry.
But it was not only the lineup, but the timing, particularly with Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, where in '92 they had come upon the scene, and it was like seeing Eddie Vedder and Chris Cornell in 1992 in Bremerton, Washington, is something you cannot even put words to. They were at their peak, and it was like the energy was ascending with grunge. There's that word again. It was absolutely amazing.
So the one song, can you pick out one song from Soundgarden and one from Pearl Jam?
I'm going to pick out one from Soundgarden to encompass it all. I had wormed my way up to about 8 people deep from the stage, and they started doing Slaves and Bulldozers, and it was the first time I'd ever been at a concert where I feared for my life.
I felt that way during Ministry at that show.
Oh, were you there?
Yes, I think we were probably about 10 feet from each other, both scared.
Even though you didn't know each other.
And there was, mosh pit. It is a cliche. There was whirling swarms of people where people were slamming into each other, slam dancing, and
Slam dancing?
there were points where I feared for my safety, and then when the Red Hot Chili Peppers closed and it finally became dark, I was up against the rail up at the front and being just multiple bodies pressing against me. And that was at the height of their popularity as well. I think that was Blood Sugar Sex Magic. Mm-hmm. And they were there, with all the energy with Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Ice Cube. There was only one band at that time that could have closed and done justice to the entire scene, and the Chili Peppers were incredible.
They were really good.
Oh,
And they came out dressed as light bulbs.
they had one body part
Yes.
dressed as a light bulb.
That's the only band that I've never seen that I want to. That sounds amazing.
So out of
Okay.
all of that, your number one there was Red Hot
Slaves
Chili
and
Peppers.
Bulldozers.
No, the concert.
Oh,
No. Red Hot Chili Peppers was the band for you, like that, or is it just all of that is your number one?
the entire day was my number one. And the Chili Peppers, like I said, they put the perfect cap to the day. But I think the highlight of that day was Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, because that was right at the apex of this movement back then. It was incredible. Chris Cornell, like if you ever just YouTube 92 Kitsap County Fairgrounds, and Chris Cornell was on another level.
So I think about, like, I was 94 Kitsap County Fairgrounds. It's not my number one, but it was Tool and Soundgarden.
Oh,
It was called Rockstock. And it's just funny because we had no money. and Jeff Schaefer, Squibb, and I slept in his car. It was raining all day. We went to a laundromat and took off all our clothes and sat in our car in underwear and dried our clothes.
See, that's an experience.
That's
right
kind
there.
of
That is
weird.
a story. That's great.
So my number one, Key Arena. So my sister has to be, she's amazing, Holly. She is friends with a woman that works for security. So she's like, hey, get yourself in the concert and I'm going to move you down. So it's Pearl Jam, 2011, 2012, maybe. And so Josh Schaefer and I go down. It's December like 7th. It's like 20 degrees. And I'm like, hey, we're going to just go down and we're going to scalp tickets because we can get in. So we go there. We go scalp. They're like, hell, $400. I'm like, well, I guess we're going home. So we'll go somewhere and hang out. Come back. Oh, now they're 200 because the show's about ready to start. We are going to leave, drive home. Lori calls me. She's like, where you at? I'm like, let's go to the west entrance. We go there. She goes, here's your tickets. Walk in. She goes, go to the restroom. She slaps on a bracelet. Walk with me. And we go in front row, VIP. So the way that was, there was like a 50-foot area before, and so we went VIP. She goes, you cannot leave here. And I sat and watched the concert 20 feet from Eddie. And that front row ticket was $2,500. And it was free. It was the greatest show I've ever seen.
That had to be the best.
And we did the same thing with Kings of Leon with my wife, Kelly. Same, like she walked us in, sat down. But just seeing Eddie like where we are right now. And just Mike going off on guitar. So every song I would change and watch a different person in the band. Because you didn't have to worry about, people pushing you. It was just people standing. And I was 20 feet away from Eddie.
They're so good live.
But when you see him so close, like that's why I will pay big money now to watch a band that I like. I don't want to sit at 300 level.
No, it's a different experience, and if it's just a different concert when you're ways away, or if you're up close enough to where you can see without having to look at a monitor. Although with all the video screens now, you can sit further back and still you can have a good show, but there's nothing like being up front.
I mean, I think you're trying to get as far away from just the experience of listening to the album when you go to the show. Like listening to the album is different. You listen to it, but if you're sitting far away looking at a screen, there's a part of me that's always thinking, could I just be like closing my eyes, sitting at home and listening to this album and having a similar experience? Like I want to be up there. I want to feel the sweat.
Oh yeah.
So my number one show, I don't have maybe as precise a memories as you guys do about some of these shows you recall, but it was 9 Inch Nails at the Gorge, Sasquatch. And I had never listened to 9 Inch Nails before that weekend. I drove over with my house of roommates, my junior year, I think it was junior year. And they were telling me about 9 Inch Nails. We listened to them the whole drive over. We get there, we're still listening to them. This was like, I want to say it was the closing band for one of the days. I don't remember which day it was, but we got our way up to the front. We're on the front row. We're on the rail. And it was just, this breeze coming through, and there's just this majesty of bands that are propped up in the open air where there's this confluence of nature and creation that's all around it, and it's mingling together, and it's like this out-of-body experience. And Nine Inch Nails is awesome.
Oh yeah.
So good.
What'd they sing?
Yeah, I don't know. Like all the stuff that I'd been listening to. At this point, I don't even remember what their song list was. But having not listened to them before that concert, I was singing along to everything.
I've heard they're really good live. I have not seen them live yet. I'd like to go see them.
They just had a show in Oregon.
Really?
Yeah. And Jeff Merle Schaefer went
Where was it at?
east side of Oregon,
Like Bend?
Bend. So they have a nice venue.
In
Maybe,
Bend.
yes, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people.
They do, right down there by the river.
Might be the Les Schwab Amphitheater. Maybe?
I believe you're right, Signdog.
Because he's a big Nine Inch Nails guy, too.
Jeff is.
Yeah. I've
Trent.
never been, but I would love to.
Trent Reznor.
There's a lot of shows.
It's just a visceral experience. Like, you just feel it in your body as the show's going on.
Wow.
And just for the first time that you've ever heard them.
I mean,
Oh,
yeah. Like, I had no idea what I was getting into, and I think I had preconceived notions of like what Nine Inch Nails was, and it wasn't. You know, yeah, it was a life changer. It'll probably be the number one concert. Just that experience, the environment. Not going to be able to top that one. Chasing
Well-
the Dragon.
well, Signdog gave like 5.
I only gave 3.
Well, but you talked about 2 before.
True.
There is one that when I went to Temple of the Dog in San Francisco,
Oh, my God.
like that.
That wasn't even in your top 3?
No, because he didn't sing very well. But just,
Cornell didn't sing well.
no. But that was like, that's bucket list. Like that is, and then, but you don't know what's going to happen 6 months later.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And our buddy Josh,
Johnston.
we talked about it today. He goes, I screwed up. I go, yeah, you did. He was on the list to go. And so now he's like, I'm never going to not go to a show ever again, wherever we go.
Have
You
you
never
ever have you ever been to a show where they were filming it? They were like doing so like when I went to Nine Inch Nails, they were filming it. So like I can go on YouTube now, and it's kind of like being transported back. Like you see all the smoke and all the things that you remember from that concert, and it's alive in HD, and you're just like, it's not the same, but it
Pearl Jam did the home shows with that 16, 18.
Yeah.
They filmed all of that, so you can go back and see that in HD. It's kind of fun.
But when you think back, like the early 90s shows or late 80s, there's nothing.
no,
They don't have that technology.
No.
Well, guys, we have any closing thoughts before I take us away? We approached the 2-hour mark, I have to say.
Well, I think that
way.
I'm not
I
really
think
surprised.
moving forward, we could take this topic and extend it a little bit. I think we could talk about music forever.
Yeah.
I mean, you talked about guitarists. There could be 2 hours on the best guitarists.
Oh.
And frontman.
Yeah.
I like it.
Hey, thank you, Signdog, for coming.
Hey, thanks for having me. This was a blast. I enjoyed all of the topics that we covered.
Thinking that there might have to be a repeat guest at some point, because as you can tell, while some of us think we know about music, there's at least one of us here who knows more than everybody else. That's for
I don't know. I just enjoy it. That's really it. I don't know how much I know about it.
Wow.
So, Mr. Ruckdashel, where can the listening audience find us?
So it's big time now. You can find us on YouTube like you've been finding us previously, or you can find us on any of your podcast apps of choice like Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, and others. So that wraps it up for this week, and we will see you next week. Every Sunday, a new show drops. and take care.
See you later.